Well, hello everyone. Welcome to our chapter 12 video lecture. The topic, dealing with employee management issues. In this chapter, we're going to focus on, again, employee management issues. Look at labor unions of yesterday and today, tactics used in labor management conflicts, controversial employee management issues. Are you ready? Let's go. Let's talk about the responsibility of management. Management is responsible for producing a profit, which sometimes means making hard decisions, which aren't always popular with employees. Those decisions could consist of things such as layoffs, reducing hours, not giving raises, and other issues pertaining to employees. Employee management issues require open discussion, goodwill, and compromise. As we go through this chapter, I want you to think about your relationship with your managers at your current place of employment or maybe a previous employer. Unions. Unions. What are unions? These are an employee organization that has the main goal of representing members in employee management issues, bargaining over job related issues. So the union represents the union employees and they negotiate and bargain with management of these different companies. Labor unions are responsible for protecting employees from intolerable work conditions and unfair treatment and to secure some say in the operations of their jobs. So think about your place of employment. Does your company have a union? If so, are you part of the union? And do you feel like the union is beneficial? Let me know your thoughts by sending me an actual email. Now, over the years, unions have lost economic and political power, and their membership has declined. So unions of today are not as strong as they have been in previous years. In the public sector, you're thinking about some type of local, state, or federal government agencies. So whether we're talking about teachers, firefighters, police, also etc. In the public sector, union membership stands at 34% compared to only 6.2% in the private sector. Now, some say we have these stats because sometimes in the public sector, you are required to be part of the union. It's not optional. Whereas in the private sector, often you have an option of whether or not you want to become part of the actual union. Let's talk a little bit about history, the history of organized labor. First, we have what we call a craft union, an organization of skilled specialists in a particular craft or trade. So different type of industries have their own unions known as craft unions. As early as 1792, shoemakers in Philadelphia had a craft union who met to discuss fundamental work issues. What were those issues? Well, at that time, workers were working more than 60 plus hours a week, wages were low, and child labor was rampant. So the union stepped in to have a discussion and dialogue and to bargain regarding these working issues. Let's talk a little history. Here we have a picture of a fire, the fire that changed labor laws. On March 25th, 1911, hundreds of young women between the age of 13 to 23 perished during a fire at the Triangle Shirtwaist Company in New York City. Prior to the fire, workers had struck for higher pay. They was on strike, shorter hours, and safer work conditions. The fire became the touchstone for organized labor and raised support for changes in the workplace. So there were questions about whether or not this fire was set intentionally or if it was an accident. More history of labor unions. The Knights of Labor was the first national labor union. It was formed in 1869. The Knights offered membership to all private working people, but fell from prominence after a riot during a labor rally in Chicago. So I do want to say often when you have unions, you have labor issues, you have strikes taking place. Sometimes this type of resistance, unfortunately, it is met with violence. The AFL, the American Federation of Labor, an organizational craft union that championed fundamental labor issues, it was founded in 1886. You got the Knights of Labor, founded in 1869, and the AFL was founded in 1886. Okay? Then we have what's called industrial unions, which are a labor organization of unskilled or semi-skilled workers in mass production industries such as the automobile industry or mining. We have the CIO, that's the Congress of Industrial Organization. The Union Organization of Unskilled Workers broke away from the AFL in 1935, but then they rejoined in 1955. So in 1955, the AFL and the CIO, they merged. They group formed together, which is now called the AFL-CIO. And that group today, there's over 55 different unions with over 12.5 million members. So again, if you are part of a union at your place of employment, what type of union do you belong to? Okay. Now, legislation has always been vital when it comes to management employee issues. The unions will often lobby to have certain laws passed that they feel will help the employees of their respective unions. Okay? So, labor legislation and collective bargaining go hand to hand. Labor unions' growth and influence has been very dependent upon public opinion and the law. So again, the unions are relied upon politicians to pass laws to help protect the employees of those various unions. There was the Norris LaGuardia Act we talked more about, helped unions by prohibiting the use of yellow dog contracts. So what are yellow dogs contracts? These are a type of contract that require employees to agree as a condition of employment not to join a union. So with the yellow dog contract, it says, okay, we'll hire you, but if we hire you, you agree to not join a union. The North LaGuardia Act helped unions by prohibiting these type of contracts from taking place. Collective bargaining. That's a process whereby the union and management of the company form a labor management agreement or a contract for workers. So, as a professor, I am part of the union, and we have a negotiating bargaining team, and they negotiate on behalf of the faculty members across the community college district. Okay. So, the Norris LaGuardia Act we talked about briefly was an act passed in 1932. It prohibits courts from issuing injunctions against nonviolent union activities. So again, it allows you to protest as a union. If you go on strike, it allows you to do nonviolent union activities without facing any type of legal action. It also outlawed contracts forbidding union activities, which means that you cannot have a contract saying that if you want to work for us, you cannot be part of union activities. That's against the law. It also outlawed the use of yellow dog contract by employees, as mentioned before. These are contracts where contractual agreements forced on workers by employees, whereby the employees agreed not to join a union as a condition of their employment. So these things have been prohibited because of the Norris-LaGuardia Act that was passed in 1932. In 1935, there was the National Labor Relations Act, also known as the Wagner Act, the last name of the person who brought this act to Congress. This act gave employees the right to form or join labor organization or to refuse to form or join. So again, you have the option most of the time to be part of a labor union or to not be part of a labor union. It also get a right to bargain with employees through elected union representatives and the right to engage in labor activities such as strikes, picketing, and boycotts. So just recently here in St. Louis, General Motors automobile industry, they're on strike. And this is an activity that was formed by their labor union. This act also prohibits certain unfair labor practices by the employer and the union and established the National Labor Relations Board to oversee union election campaigns and investigate labor practices. This act gave a great impetus to the union movement. So this is a very important act, the National Labor Relations Act, also known as the Wagner Act, that was passed in 1935. Some more acts that you should be aware of so you can see the importance that legislation has on unions is the Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938. This act set a minimum wage and maximum basic hours for workers in interstate commerce industry. So to expand upon that, there is a minimum hourly rate of pay that you must pay your employees within a certain state. Also, if they work more than a certain number of hours, you're required to pay them overtime compensation, which is typically 1.5 times their normal rate of pay. But look at this. The first minimum wage set was 25 cents an hour. Wow. 25 cents an hour. So, question for you. Do you know the current minimum hourly rate of pay in the state of Missouri or the state of Illinois? If so, send me the correct response via email. Okay? Look at a few more acts. The Labor Management Relations Act, also called the Taft-Hartley Act, again, last name of the senators who passed this act or who presented these acts in 1947. It amended the Wagner Act that we talked about in 1835, permitted states to pass laws prohibiting compulsory unions membership in what we call right to work laws. We talk more about that. It set up methods to deal with strikes that affects national health and safety, prohibited secondary boycott, closed shop agreements, and further vetting the requirement of wage payments for work not performed by unions. This act gave more power to management. So just like you have the unions lobby for legislation, companies do too. So a lot of the funding that goes to politicians are funded by what we call different interest groups. It could be these bigger corporations who want certain laws passed, or it could be coming from the union. Our last act we're going to take a look at for right now is the Management Reporting and Disclosure Act passed by Landon and Griffin Act 1959. This amended the two previous acts, the Taft-Hartley Act here and the Wagner Act was passed in 1935. This act guaranteed individuals' rights of unions, members are dealing with their union, such as the right to nominate candidates for union office, vote in union elections, and participate in union meetings vote on union business, examine union records and accounts, require annual financial reports to be filed with the U.S. Department of Labor. This goal was to clean up union corruption. And yes, there have been many cases of corruption within these different unions. Boy, some good stuff. So stay tuned for part 2 of our Chapter 12 discussion lecture.